Good evening, sir.
Very good evening.
Sir, really sorry for this late because there were some technical issues with there, sir.
Normally, when we advance, no, these kind of glitches do happen. No problem. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And students also, I'm really sorry for this today's because session has started 15 minutes late. So today we are having our resource person as Dr. Joseph Rajkumar, and giving a brief introduction about sir. Dr. Rajkumar is Dr. Joseph Rajkumar. So he's currently working as a principal scientist in agriculture entomology at ICR CPCRI Regional Station Kayamkulam. Sir has completed his doctorate from IARI, Fusa, New Delhi, and has undergone a DBT postdoctoral fellowship at SPIC Science Foundation in Chennai. And he has also worked as an assistant professor at Cardamom Research Station, KAU, Pambadam, during 1999 to 2007. And he has refined IPM technologies for cardamom and black pepper, and was instrumental in the release of 3 cardamom varieties, that is the PV2, PV3, and PV5. Subsequently, he had joined ICR CPCRI Regional Station Kayamkulam during 2007 and has developed novel botanical formulations as pest management solutions in coconut and validated coconut-based ecological engineering for pest regression through stimulodeterrence. He has discovered a sutimol scavenger beetle, which is involved in bioscavenging of palm leaflets infested by rugospiring whitefly, and established conservation biological control of the exotic whitefly. And he and his team has identified and characterized 2 invasive nesting whiteflies also, and that has infesting coconut, and reported their occurrence in India for the first time. And he has more than 70 publications in well acknowledged peer-reviewed journals, and has presented several papers in national and international symposia, and I had also authored a book. And he has received several national awards, including ICR Jawaharlal Nehru Award for Doctoral Thesis, ICR Lal Bahadur Shastri Young Scientist Award, Professor T.N. Anandakrishnan Award for Senior Scientist during 2018-2019, and ASRA Young Scientist Award. Is also fellow of ICR Association for Advancement of Pest Management in Horticulture Ecosystem, Bangalore, as well as ICR Society for Plant Protection Sciences, New Delhi. So we are very fortunate enough to have Dr. Joseph Rajkumar. Sir, I hand over this screen to you, sir. Please start the session.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nima. Whether I am audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay, so I will share my screen now. Slides.
Yes, sir.
Is it? No.
It has just started, sir. Yes, sir, it is. But
yeah, it is coming. It is coming. Okay. Anyhow, very sincere apologies to all the students for having a slight delay in the program. Anyhow, due to some technical glitch, we will make it up. And I will now my screen is clear.
Yes,
it's coming.
Yes,
Something coming now.
It is clear.
Okay. Let me. I think the starting trouble will be there always.
It is clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I take this opportunity to thank ICR CPCRI for having given me this opportunity. And also, I think Dr. Chandri ma'am has taken the first part of it, right? Okay. What is happening today?
Yes, sir. Chandrika madam has taken the first part.
Okay. Right. Let me go to the first slide. It is taking some time. I don't know. Okay. How many students are there today? Maybe around 16, 17 students are there, I suppose. Okay, my dear students, let the slide come across. So I'll be talking about the plant health management and incursion management of invasive pests. That is what I'm going to talk. I think my senior colleague, Dr. Chandriya ma'am, has very clearly and very elaborately explained about all the insect pests on coconut and their management strategies. Okay, so this health management, before I go into the topic per se, I just wanted to expose you. I think you all agricultural graduates, and you may have come across with the field experiences or a lot of theories about this agriculture. So basically, agriculture is nothing but a kind of a field cultivation. So ager means field and cultura means cultivation. So this is how it has evolved. And if somebody asks you what exactly agriculture is, it is nothing but harnessing solar energy. So that is very, very important. So my dear students, whenever agriculture has to flourish, we have to see that the solar energy is well utilized by the plants for its effective crop protection. And when you come to the science of farming, the base of farming, the approaches of farming are very, very critical. So your food should be your medicine. So in that case, our farmers are our greatest assets in the system. So there's a famous poet in Tamil called as Thiruvalluvar, whose poet goes like this: Uludundu valvare valvar ellam toludundu pinsilvar. It means they live who live to plow and eat, the rest behind them bow and eat. So everybody may have money and other things, but only the farmers will have the food, and food is very, very essential because food forges friendship. It is a kind of an happiness inducer. It always holds families together, communities very closer. On all celebrations, we have food, and food always sparks celebration. It's a uniter of heart. That is why now, after the end of all meetings, you have a food, and all functions you have a food. So food has an end point. That is why we call as agriculture. Agriculture is the only a profession which has got a culture into it. Whereas in other profession like your medical, they don't call us a culture. So if you ate today, you have to be always thankful to a farmer, and food is always self-satisfied. So once your stomach is full, and even if somebody offers you a very good food as a biryani or whatever it is, you will always say no to it. Whereas when your purse is full, if somebody gives you some 10 or 20, 2,000 notes, it will be taken up by yourself. So that is a kind of satisfaction which the food goes. So we are to be highly proud of our profession, because it is always a self-satisfied one. So all good ideas do spark during all kind of food eating process. So you have to always focus on that. That's why our Prime Minister says chai pe charcha, which means even during the tea time. Most of the discoveries in Western world happen during the tea break. So always have a tea with a lot of fun as well as some passion towards the science. Now, globally, you find agriculture has some setbacks, no doubt about that, in terms of production or quality or whatever it is. So, UN has been emphasizing the role of this agriculture, just reinventing the focus on agriculture, because it is the base on which all other activities are being built or the nation is being defined. In 2014, we had family farming, where the focus is mainly to make a farm family flourish in the system. And 2015, we had the soil, International Year of Soil, because soil is a living entity. If you nourish the soil properly, it brings a lot of benefits to mankind, because the health is very important. In 2016, we had pulses. 2020, we had plant health. So that is very, very important, because once the plant health is determined, or once the plant health is really good enough, you always feel that it produces more, and at the same time, it can withstand the pressure of pest and diseases. So that is the point which everybody has to understand very critically, because it's a kind of a sustainable development goal the plant health itself is. And this year, as you all know, it is the International Year for Fruits and Vegetables. So the fruits, how far it is going to alleviate you from the malnutrition, and also how this kind of innovative technologies will take for sustainable development goals are very, very critical. So when I talk about this Moola Mantra or a Kisan Sutra, everybody should know these are the 5 P's which any farmer has to understand before he takes up the crop production. The first P talks about the pedigree. So any planting material or any seed material should be of top class quality. It should be of highly virulence in nature. It should be the better representative for higher productivity. So the pedigree is very important, not only for an annual short duration crop, even for a perennial system, because a farmer after planting a bad coconut seedling should not weep maybe after 7 years or 8 years. So that is very, very critical. So pedigree, once you know all the protection strategies, that is one of the areas where we are focusing more these days, because the crop loss due to insects or diseases turn to more than 35 to 40% even certain cases. Once you have the technologies under your fingertip and the best pedigree with you, naturally you are going to produce more. So once the production technologies are also known to you, you will definitely produce more. Once you produce more, then comes the fourth P, which is the processing. So a farmer will become so profitable, or he'll make this enterprise profitable, or he becomes a kind of entrepreneur only when he takes up the processing mechanism. And for that processing, the production is a very vital component. So once he processes, naturally he becomes so empowered with his money matters, and finally it leads to a kind of prosperity. So a farmer will lead to a prosperous life only if he has the best of the pedigree, if he knows how to protect it, if he knows how to produce more, and he enters into a kind of entrepreneurship in processing. So my dear friends, always be focused on these 4 or 5 P's to make the farmer a very prosperous man in the system. So the basics, because I am very, very particular about all these basics, because once the basics are sound for an agricultural graduate, he can sustain forever. He can crack or break any of the challenges which is coming in the future. So when you go to the National Science Museum in New Delhi, you will find the pillars of agriculture as soil, because soil is a very, very important component. Soil is a living entity. If you understand the soil properly, and if you nourish the soil properly, your plant is going to sustain more or produce more for you. So that is very, very critical. So always try to understand the soil characters before a farmer, before you advise a farmer to take a relevant crop or even the best production for that matter. Next is the judicious use of water, because water itself is a very scarce commodity. Next world war is between countries with and without water. So you have to be very cautious about the use of water. That's why the present system is per drop more crop approach. So always give very limited amount of water. Climate, you have no say on that, but still climate change is a really international phenomenon now. So the climate extremes happening these days are creating lot of problem, not only to foreign countries or whatsoever for that matter, even our own country, and a state like Kerala in particular is very much affected by the climate extreme. So one has to really have a kind of a climate smart farming approaches to tide over this particular situation. Next comes the seed material. As I discussed earlier, the seed materials are very, very critical, and you have to really empower a farmer very nicely. A farmer should be highly motivated in terms of his technology deficit, or for that matter, or even his marketing issues which are coming these days in a critical level. And finally, the tools which he wanted to use. If you have a very good holistic understanding about your soil, your water, your climate extremes, or climate for that matter, your seed and the tools which you have, naturally your farmer first innovation can happen. Your students ready approaches will be kept always at the high level. So coming to coconut for that matter, coconut is a wonderful ecological service provider. So always feel that coconut is not a crop which gives you coconut. Coconut is a crop which makes the coastline at perfect integrity. So only if the coastline of a peninsular India is integral, then only the land mass will be there, for which coconut plays a very, very important role. You see the diversity of coconut, you will have a small nut as small as a small marble and as big as an original coconut. So see the color of that, all these things vary. So diversity is very critical, and coconut is a very classical example to have that kind of thing. So the islands are intact, the coastlines are intact, and it is a crop which conserves the biodiversity. Once a flower blooms in coconut, you see how much of the insects do arrive to get pollen or nectar for that matter. And these are the factors which you have to understand to see. Just see how the soil are just bound to the roots of coconut, so that it makes the binding properties, or it makes the coastal area intact. So try to understand in depth for that before we enter the subject. So Before I start, I just wanted to just emphasize or give you some points about the science behind that. So what you understand by the terminology science basically science, which means knowledge, but science is nothing but reasoning. So before you do anything, try to reason out what are that you do. And it is always a logical approach to understanding. So science organizes the knowledge about a particular subject for the welfare of the human behavior and society. So that's very important. Science with a human face is very, very important. It's a kind of out of box thinking, no doubt about that. So you should have a kind of a curiosity and the utility. So always don't expect a kind of a practical utility, but if you can deliver something to the curiosity part, that also is very much important. So it's the balance between your curiosity and the utility. So that's the point which has to be emphasized in the present day circumstances. So it is always truth centric, evidence based, reproducible, and extra consistent. So what you do in your area should be reproducible under the same methodology in a different area. So you should have a very careful observation. You should have a very systematic experimentation. You should have an inductive reasoning for all these things to happen. So don't forget these kind of based in the science. Just see why human beings have got leg, plants don't, because plants are not in search of food, whereas we are always in search of food. Plants can prepare their own food material. So this is how you have to reason out. And just see lightning. Once the lightning comes, the nitrogen is just broken out, and once the nitrogen or the nitrous acid is formed, it sprinkles the nitrogen to the cropland. That is one of the reasons whenever the rainfall comes, the happiness of the plants or even the bloominess of the plant or the lusciness of the plant is always on the higher side than whatever way you are going to irrigate. So I wanted to underline here for all the student community, this is a part of the constitution. So you have to understand and value the constitution, because in constitution article 51 AH says to develop scientific temper. So it is a duty of every citizen or every individual for that matter to have a scientific temperament, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry. So this is a part of it. It's a part of the constitution. So you have to understand it's a great thing. So when somebody asks you, why do you study? You should be bold enough to say that you are studying to accomplish your goals. So that's a point which every student community should be knowing. So arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. This is what Swami Vivekananda was just saying. Anyone who starts to plow and then keeps looking back is of no use. That's what the Bible says. So you have to be extremely focused. So that is a very humble advice to the student community. And that is how it is. So you have to have a kind of a rationality, karya karana viveka, a knowledge centric of that. And then you, as a student, you should be always humble. Humility is a very important part of it. So that is anahamhara. These are the temperament of science. And what are the characters of this? Karya karana vivaka, anahamhara, experimentation or innovation. Sondra nishnam. You have to have a kind of that. Then relentlessness. You have to be oppressively constant. So when you fix a goal, you have to work hard. Nirdakshanya. So that is the point of this temperament. You should have highly integral in nature. You should be honest. Your honesty should not be questioned at any level, and that is definitely called as arjavam. And finally, the creativity, which is called as pratibha. So these are the points which has to be inculcated in your mind to become a good citizen and good scientist or good responsible citizen for that matter. So your goal should be very specific. It should be measurable, achievable, and realistic, and always should be time. Time is very, very important. Don't have a goal for a long period of time. Very short period and achievable. You see that all your things are achievable. So it is always reflects upon Satyam, Nityam, and Purnam. So that is how your goal should be to make it. Just see how the science builds out. See how the bird tries to eat an insect. So what happens? The insect emits a kind of a material, so which is irritating the bird's eye. See, small is always beautiful, and not only that, small is always very powerful as well. So here you just see a big chick for that matter is unable to feed upon the small insect in the tree. So when I talk about insects, you have to very much understand. I think Dr. Chandra ma'am would have explained it in detail to you, but we study insect not because insects are pests. So that's the point which you have to underline. We study insect because insects are dominant creatures in the world. So as long as human beings are there, or as long as the world is there, insects are going to be there because they are highly dominant. They are dominant than the plant kingdom. They are absolutely dominant than the human beings. They constitute around 56%. Plants do only 22%, and human beings are just 1%. So this 1% will do nothing to the insect. So this is the point you have to underline. So whenever you want to manage an insect, you have to be very smart. If not, insects will take away from that. Second is they have a very large evolutionary background, which means they evolved some 350 million years ago. So naturally, they will be highly adaptable. They have seen a lot of famines, a lot of droughts. So your target should be very, very point to the matter. So they are highly beneficial. You see, even the insects form an excellent food. Insects form an excellent dress material. All marriages do happen only if insects are there. You just take, for example, silk sarees. Without that, no marriage is good. Even in rubber making, you always have to sieve the material. You are sieving the rubber because to eliminate the grubs. Whereas in the next process comes the roasting. So in the process of roasting, you just make the red flower beetle eggs omelette. So the outcome is you get a kind of energy. So that is the points you have to understand, because you are going to live with the insects and insects are going to be dominant, and you can never say that you are going to have a system that is free from insects. So many are beneficial. Yes, there are some risks and we have to manage that, and we will be focusing mostly on that. So you just see in case of palm alone, 546 species and annual loss is around 680 million. So these are the figures which always the policymakers are worried about. But what I should always say is the ecological base of that is very, very critical. So right from the beginning, and entomologists or whomsoever it is, they wanted to suppress them. So use the biological control. We have excellent biological control agents. Even in coconut system, we have black-headed caterpillar very effectively suppressed by these parasitoids. And you have even see mud wasp taking a larvae, and then it takes a larvae and then reaches your house to just lay egg on and feed. So this is a kind of parasites and insecticides. So insecticide evolved against insects, and the first discovery or the first insecticidal property of a material DDT was discovered in early 50s during the World War II. Just see here, and a soldier is being applied with DDT just to see that the body louse are kept away from his system, and so that he is recovering from the typhus fever. So the insecticides have been evolved as a treatment for mankind, not as a treatment for the plant pests. So this is how we have evolved. Now you know what are the disadvantages of DDT, and we have in fact banned DDT at national level or at the international level, thanks to the novel by Raquel Carson, Silent Spring, because all these things are known, but it did a kind of a good system at the time. At the time, it was labeled as a kind of a miraculous powder by none other than Winston Churchill during the Second World War time. So the periods told that it's a kind of an integrated control will be very nice. So they just wanted to have a kind of a combination of biological control and selective use of insecticide. Many times it failed, and you know insecticides have always biomagnification, resistance, and even resurgence. Resurgence is in, sudden uptake, increase in the population, resistance in the inability of an insect to tolerate the population, and also the residual level, which is always going to become. Now in 1960s came a very important theory called the pest management concept. Clark and Gare, this is a civil service question. Why I'm just emphasizing, this is the point which has revolutionized the insect pest management into two different eras. Insecticide era and a non-insecticide or the pest management era. So this is a very important thing. So here we compatibly integrate the system so that the natural enemies are sustaining. That is very, very important. So you cannot have a system without the natural enemies. That means when you are applying any means of pest management, you have to see that your pest population is coming down, not eliminated. Pest population is kept at a low base, it is not going to cause a kind of economic damage for you. Just see the pest population, it should be this much level. You have to intervene only at this level. At this level, this will be taken care by the natural enemies. So the ultimatum or the output of a pest management is nothing but leaving a pest residue. That's very important, pest residue. Only when the pest residue is left out, then the natural enemies can take up this pest and feed and sustain the system so that the environment is safeguarded. So my dear students, elimination is not our target, our control is not our target. Management at the same time conserving the natural needs are our main concern, and our focus should be how you conserve this environment as well. So just see now the system. You just see from from biological control, insecticides, integrated control, pest management. Now we are coming kind of an agroecology. So this is a very important concept. So here you have a kind of a system where you bring in everything. So we have at Kayangulam a small garden of around 40 palms, 39 to 40 palms with a lot of intercrops. So what happened is, I think I humbly request all the students to view one of our small clipping which is available in ICR-CPCRI YouTube, which is ecological engineering for pest regression, where I have elaborated very nicely about the advantages, disadvantages, what exactly the system is. So in this small piece of land, you have almost 39 to 40 coconut and also all the intercrops. The resultant is the coconut leaves will touch upon these intercrops. This is a diverse water queue, the pests are repelled off. So you have jack here, you have a miracle fruit, you have citrus lemon, you have rambutan, you have everything. And here the system is a kind of very, very sustainable in the sense it produces a continuous income, it gives a continuous employment, and just see it can, it's a climate smart agriculture. It's a climate smart. You have a fish tank here, you attract always the birds to be in the bird perch, and just see in this system you have soil temperature less than 5 degrees than the ambient condition, and also higher number of pollinators and the defenders, and the soil is always started with a lot of these worms are used, earthworms. So these are the system now you have to integrate together so that coconut also gives you a continuous output. At the same time, these intercrops also give you a livelihood income, and this makes the system very, very robust and stable. Because even if one of the crops in the system fails, we have a lot of banana here, a lot of varieties of banana we have, and all the things. One crop fails, the other will come to your rescue, and farmers will be simply de-risked off in this kind of system. And this is the point of thing which are now to be very focused. It is the plant health which is very critical. It's a practice to understand and overcome the biotic and abiotic factors that should limit the achieving a kind of the full genetic potential of the crop. So you are aiming at the full genetic potential. So this will be the terminology which is very critical, the health, farm health, or plant health, because health is very critical, because it includes your IPM, it includes your management, it includes your disease management, it includes your water management, it includes soil health management, everything together. So here wise, the discipline wise may not be a matter of concern or matter of division now. We should have a kind of a unity here to see that all are working together cohesively. For what? Only to see the health is improved. Once the health is improved, it is going to produce for which, what kind of intercrop, what kind of legume crops you can have, what kind of nutrition you can have, what kind of soil and water management conservation strategies you have. All these things together will make the system robust and the health of the farm is improved. This is very important. And some of the advances in pest management I will just touch upon before I enter into the invasive pests. So one is the 20-hydroxyecdisone and the juvenile hormone. These are the two hormones which the insects do have. One is the molting hormone, which triggers the molting events, and another is the juvenile hormone, which dictates the characteristic of a molt. So if there are any aberration or any alteration in these hormones, which are very specific to the insect, the resultant would be there will be malformation in the adult. So we have insect growth, the regulators for that. So one typical example is the use of an altocid, which will always make a larva will remain as a larva. It cannot molt into the next stage. So once the larvae of a mosquito or the wrigglers are only in the larval stage, what happens is the mosquitoes will not emerge out. So these are some of the practical utilities of that. And you have certain of these plumbagin and azadirachtin, some of the molecules which are anti-ecdisone kind of effect. So they cannot induce a kind of a timely metamorphosis. We have JH mimics. JH mimics to some extent are used even in silkworm industry to improve the size of the caterpillars. But all the way, most of these insect growth regulators are used in pest management because they are very, very target oriented on the insect pests. And we have even a molecule called as lufeneron, which was found to be effective even against red palm beetle, which has more than 9 to 10 larval instas, for which the insect with more the larval instas, such kind of hormonal mimics do work very nicely. And these are the areas where you people should think about more. And we have some of the botanical formulation. I think Dr. Chandrima might have explained about you, or the Clerodendron importunatum, which is a weed is used in the management of the rhinoceros beetle. We have come out with some of these extracts and made into a kind of cake, as well as a kind of a paste. Paste is a grease-based paste, so a lot of alkaloids, a lot of components of the plant products are integrated. So this cake and this paste can be used to kind of repelling this rhinoceros beetle in the field, and we have developed this technology, and it is in the process of commercialization. And we have a lot of gut microbes in the system. So gut microbes is another important area, because the health of an individual depends upon the health of the gut microbes. So you see in red palm beetle, we have a wide array of microbes which are responsible for the disintegration of the palm and make the palm very much in such a way that they can feed and make the digestion very easier. So insect as such cannot do that. So these kind of microbes will digest and make the palm rotten. And in the rotten process, the insect feeds and survives in the system. See, all these Serratia, Enterococcus, Klebsiella, all these bacteria or these gut microbes are present to either withstand the harsh environment or even alter the C-N ratio or produce a kind of immunity or fix nitrogen or cellulose degradation in the process. Insects feeding in a very harsh environment is very successful. At the same time, the death of the palm do happen. So these are the areas, these are the weaker links where we can exploit in the pest management. And we all know how this BT, which is a crystalline toxin, which upon fed by these larval caterpillars produces a kind of a protoxin. The protoxin is activated into kind of active toxin. That is the reason by this alkaline proteases. So you have to very much underline the fact alkaline proteases, because only the alkaline proteases which are present in the gut of an insect. So only under this alkaline proteases environment, what happens is the protoxin is converted to an active toxin. We don't have such kind of system in our body. We have an acidic proteases, so that is not responsible for this conversion. So the resultant is most of these bioagents are now, all these toxins are the proteinaceous material, and these proteins are put into the plant system. The classical successful is your cotton, and now efforts are being made to put into the brinjal, and all the other things are being done. It can be either through a recombinant DNA technology or an agrobacterium mediated process, or through a gene gun technology. These kind of genes are put into the plant material, and the resultant plant are becoming a kind of resistant. So these are some of the advances in the pest management which are doing. Now of late, my friend Dr. Rajesh is doing a kind of an RNA interference where we are targeting the red palm weevil using the silencing approach with the double-stranded RNA, which upon entering into the system of insect produces a kind of small interfering RNA because of the enzyme, due to the presence of enzyme dicer. So what happens is a small interfering RNA, it forms, it gets incorporated in the protein complex. So what is this protein complex going to do? So this protein complex is going to be guided in the process of the mRNA complementary strands, and finally the insects are not in a position to do a very important physiological process of the thing. So some of the very important housekeeping action of the insects are targeted here, and this kind of actions cannot, maybe a molting process or a feeding process is terribly interrupted, and the resultant is the insects are not able to successfully complete its life cycle and causes a death in the feeding process. So these are some of the areas of interest, especially we have to be very much knowing about. But above all, what I would just emphasize to my students is we have very cutting edge technologies, including RNA interference and technology, but the basic thing which worked very fine, even during the COVID period, it is a regulatory pest management. Regulation, it's very, very important. You just see when there was an outbreak of black-headed caterpillar during 1920s, I'm talking about early 90s. So the resulted in 1922, there was an outbreak in Mangalore, and the resultant is, because at the time it was under the Madras presidency, they have enforced the Pest Act in 1923 in the entire Kerala, so that they very clearly told no seedlings should be taken from any part of the Kerala into this Mangalore, because when you take up the material, you are knowingly or unknowingly taking this black-headed caterpillar as well. Just how we had the regulation for the COVID management. So you are not supposed to move across the states. Similar kind of restrictions were there at the time. So that is one of the reasons why most of these invasive pests are under quarantine. Quarantine pests have to be very strictly monitored. So this point I will come again. So the resultant is, at that time, we had excellent laboratories for mass production of these parasitoids. At the same time, there were excellent regulatory mechanism. Both worked wonderfully well. The resultant is the pest could be suppressed. Now I am very happy to say in Kerala, we don't have this black-headed caterpillar as a pest anywhere in this region, because we have a very good population of this parasitoid, state-specific parasitoid, whether it's a Goniosus nefandidis or even Bracon brevicornis, all take care of this pest to a greater level. So at that time, there was a boat laboratory with the production of these parasitoids, and these boat laboratory along the channels or along the canals were taken to all far off places, and wherever the pest incidence is there, these parasitoids were released into the area. So with regulatory pest management, it was under success. So my dear friends, the emphasis which I am going to highlight here is a kind of a one health approach. So you have to be you have to focus on a kind of a environmentally responsible farming. So which means farming should have a better soil, it should have a better plant, it should produce a better animals, and it should give a better environment. Only if all are better, all are fine, then only the human beings are going to be better. So human beings cannot be better in the absence of better animals, in the absence of better plants, and in the absence of better soil and the better environment. You just see, even during the COVID pandemic, when human beings are struggling, our movement were restricted. At the time, even the pest incidence was coming down. Why? Because we are one of the main reasons for all these changes which is happening in the environment, and the resultant is the air pollution goes up, the ecological debt ratio goes on the higher side. We have to have a kind of a restriction about all this activity to the greater level. Yes, now comes the final phase of this advancement is a kind of a Internet of Things, or you have a kind of advanced technologies or the digital agriculture. So you have in our system eKalpa Android mobile app. So every students, please download this eKalpa Android mobile and then get all the advanced technologies or farm production technologies or even pest management technologies in that. So we have an ICR, CPCR, a UT, which is the UT which I was mentioning, wherein here there was a whitefly management strategy, and now we have put ecological engineering, and we have UAV for pest incidents. You can just UAV, how it is happening. This unmanned aerial vehicle, whether it's used in the pest monitoring, or also you can have how it can be used in the pest surveillance program. And we have using the sound technology, because red palm beetle upon feeding produces a gnawing sound, and this sound we have recorded, and we have made the machine empower to produce a kind of a detector, early detector system. So we CPCRI, in collaboration with private startup, that is Resnova, we have developed a kind of a sensor. So it's a detector process. So it has got a sensor. Now this sensor will be attached to the palm, and this detection unit will be activated. So you just press the scan button. Once the scan button is pressed, sensor will get the signals into the system. It has a small processor. Based upon the artificial intelligence, it can filter out the unwanted things, and it will see if the sound of the grubs are there. It will say yes, this is detected. So this is the very advanced detection system. So we are in the process of upscaling it after the field validation. So far we could get around 80% of the success. So with this background, so how the food is important, how the health is important, how the advancement of entomology technology is important, I will just flash upon some of the ideas about the invasive pests in coconut system. And invasive pests are very, very important. They are non-native pests. They are quarantine pests. They are exotic pests. They are not native to the system. So what happens when the pest is not native, enters into a new system, it has no natural enemies. So the result in it breeds profusely. Once it breeds profusely, there will be a simple outbreak, tremendous population explosion to happen. So coupled with the climatic factors, it will make a kind of a dominant creature because it lacks the natural enemies in the system. So it's definitely a biosecurity threat, no doubt about that. That is why whenever an invasive pest come, even for that matter, SARS or Nipah or whatever it is, we have to be very, very cautious. So it can be a kind of a bioterrorism as well. It can be a deliberate introduction as well. It affects the economic well-being and the livelihood of a new environment. So which means a pest which is native to South America or North America will never become a pest of seriousness in those areas. Whereas when this pest enters into our area, it is definitely going to be a pest of concern. So we have many insects which has emerged in the recent past, and we will just discuss one by one before we conclude in this lecture. So you just see in 1987, it was Batrocella, Rhinocella. It did not take that much of a problem in our country. And next came in 1996, the spiraling whitefly Ailurodiscus dispersus. It is not a serious pest on coconut, but this particular pest has ravaged the total scenario. All your ornamental plants, fruit trees, everything, more than vegetables, including more than 450 hosts were recorded, and this caused a kind of a real concern. So it was introduced somewhere in 1993 till 2000. It was creating a kind of a problem in the system. Even insecticides were recommended for the management of this whitefly. But unfortunately, after the introduction of the Encarsia guadeloupe from our Lakshadweep island, this pest subsided. So the beauty is how these natural enemies do function. And in 1998, our own laboratory at Kayangulam, we could discover the coconut eriophytmite Eisseria gororonis. Dr. Sadyama madam did that. And over a period of time, we have been doing very meticulous research on that, now using a kind of a botanical and biorational botanical and nutritional management. We are in a position to reduce the pest population. We'll come to that. Then we had in 2010, we reported Milloceras untatus from our own lab at our system. So this is more endemic to the root wilt prone zone. And in 2016, my colleagues, I think from NBAR as well as from Kerala Agriculture Universities reported Rugo spiraling whitefly. I think all the students now knew about this particular pest. In all the South Indian states, all the coconut growing states, you have this particular pest of a different proportion. Now it has come down, but in 2016, 17 to 18, it was on the higher scale. Now we have two nesting whiteflies reported from our own station. One is the Paralerodus bontari, another is Paralerodus miniae. These are all very small in nature, and we'll listen to that a bit later. And finally, it's a palm whitefly. So from 2016 to 2019, at least we had 4 invasive whiteflies reported on coconut. So that is the point. And these whiteflies are very minute. This is the largest one is the Rugo spiraling whitefly, not the largest of the whitefly species. It's the largest what we have reported in our country. So in 1987, when inflorescence caterpillar, especially Batrachitra, was introduced into our country, we felt at the time it is going to have a serious setback. But thanks to the nature, we have some of these indigenous parasitoids which could suppress the population. And how the symptoms look like, you can find the male flowers intact on the spadix. Once it is intact, you can find small caterpillars into that. So it can also sometimes feed on the buttons, and sometimes it can cause a kind of glistening appearance on the unopened inflorescence as well. So you will find at the time of blooming, all the male flowers will be dried. So which means a kind of self-pollination is ruled out here. So this was a problem, especially in some of the varieties like Nuleca, and not in all the pests for that matter. Spiraling whitefly, as I told earlier, it was a very serious pest reported from most of the vegetables and ornamental plants, but in coconut it was a very, very minor pest. And we had more than 500 hosts were reported. When this Encarsia guadalupe was imported from or was taken from Minicoy, this is one of the Lakshadweep Islands by Dr. Ramani and co-workers, the outcome was simply significant. So in a period of 1 or 2 years, the entire population was brought down by this particular Encarsia guadalupe. This is Encarsia, another species of Encarsia, which is Haitiensis. So what I am just trying to highlight here is the species level identifications are very, very critical, and all these species are very, very specific on some of these whiteflies. But Encarsia guadalupe, which I will come a bit later, was found to be very successful not only in the management of spiraling whitefly, it is also very much successful in the management of Rugo spiraling whitefly as well. Now in coconut, the most important one was the coconut eriophytmite reported in 1998. So it caused a kind of triangular yellow-shaped halo in the affected region. So the mites feed, causes scrapes. Then once the nut developed, there are some nut fall happening, and at the same time cracks do develop. So we found neem oil, garlic emulsion very successful. Even palm oil sulfur was found to be very effective. And even Hirsutella thompson, one of the acaropathogenic fungi, was found to be very effective in the management of your coconut eriophytmite. So the balanced nutrition is very critical. That's why the first part I was just mentioning about health management. So if the palm health is okay, even the potassic content is found to be satisfactory, normally the palms will be in a position to withstand the pressure of these mites to some extent. So whenever you go for application, you should do it from the top. And even your simple sowing of this cowpea on the palm basin and then plowing at the time of flowering was found to improve the organic status of the soil, resulting in a better palm health and withstanding the power of withstanding the invasive potential of this mite. So mite has definitely come down, but invasive pest, that's why in the initial phase it was creating a kind of problem. We had Milloceras untatus, and this is very much endemic to this root wilt zone, especially in our area, whereas in other coconut growing belts, it was not found to be a major problem at all. So we don't take care so much on that. So wherever palms are having root wilt, the margins are just fed by this beetle. So this is one of the indicators that those palms took up the infection. So some more studies are happening in to see how best this can be used as an indicator to find that. Even in nurseries, it has its stage. Now in 2016, that's a point of very important concern. This the Rugo spiraling whitefly. It was reported simultaneously by KU and NPAR in 2016, and the resultant is it was reported from Kerala as well as from Tamil Nadu simultaneously. So the whitefly, for that matter, I feel it is slightly a bigger version of that. It has some brown mottlings on the wings. It makes big colonies here, and you can see the egg, which is slightly creamish, and the crawler, this is the only mobile stage of the pest. Once it finds the correct host, it just shut down its appendages and then starts feeding. And it has the nymphs, which is slightly swollen. So it is a convex shaped nymph for that matter. And once the whitefly emerges, it makes a T-shaped or a kind of inverted L-shaped marking here. So it affects leaves, petioles, even nuts for that matter. And whenever it feeds, it produces a very large quantum of honeydew. And wherever the honeydew gets deposited, you'll find this sooty mold. We identified that as a Leptosyphium species would develop over the palm. Normally, it is on the upper surface of the palm leaflet, resulting in tremendous photosynthetic aberration. But normally, the whiteflies do infest on the older leaves. So, to a greater extent, the economic production potential is not that much affected, but still the health is very much affected, for which health improvement is very critical. How do you identify Rugi operculatum dispersus? It is the puparium which is normally used for characterization. So in puparium, you will have a vasiform orifice, a kind of vasiform orifice in the form of rugose nature, this is wavy nature. So once you have the rugose wavy nature of the operculum, what we call is rugose spiraling whitefly, and you will find this is a lingula. Lingula is normally pointed or triangular in shape, whereas in case of dispersus, you will find lingula bulged tongue-like, and there is no rugose in it. And also in the compound pores, you will find a structure here, a dagger-like process which is absent in dispersus. So these are some of the features, and you find normally dispersus is very, very specific on guava, and it's a preferred host is guava, whereas here the preferred host we find mostly it's on coconut, and the size is absolutely bigger. And you have some brown mottlings in Rugo spiraling whitefly here, that brown mottlings are absent here. And this is a very classical biological control strategy which we have recorded. And this is Encarsia guadeloupe. And you find in the initial stages in Chattanguri and Kumbarakam, it was only around 30%. And over a period of 3 to 4 months, what happened is the parasitism has gone to a greater level. So parasitized pupae will have black in color, whereas it will be creamish. The healthier one will be creamish. So you just see how the parasitoid emerges from a parasitized pupa of this Rugo spiraling whitefly. And this is what is very, very important. So this can reduce up to 60% of the population of the Rugo spiraling whitefly. So what we advised is a kind of a conservation biological control, because we advise the farmers not to go for any insecticidal application. There are states where they have gone for insecticidal application, including Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh for that matter. They all burned their fingers. So that is not the advice. So you just see here the colony after parasitization are dispersed, and finally you will find the pest is in the normal. So we have very good natural enemy. This is another natural enemy called as Apertochrisa species, which is your chrysopid predator, which feeds on these whitefly adults, or even for that matter, the nymphs pierces them and this medicine. So our friend at Ampachipet, he has developed the rearing technology very successfully, and they're distributing the eggs into the field. So this is another area, but this will have a suppression to the tune of only 10%. So I repeat here once again, this can reduce the population less than 10%, whereas the Encarsia can take up to 60 to 70%. So that makes a very important thing. So this is another general kind of predator. We have lady beetles to a greater level on the Jorovia, Minocylus. And you can find a Cybocephalus one which can feed on the eggs, especially these are nesting whitefly eggs. They feed on these eggs and then destroy the population. So what I wanted to highlight, my dear students, is we have a wide array of natural enemies, either in the form of Encarsia or in the form of Apertochrisa or the Neuropteran, or also in terms of Cybocephalids. These predators reduce the population significantly. So the only thing is you are in a position to regulate the population of the whitefly by not applying any of these insecticides. So that's the point of interest which you have to advise. And what we found is in 2018, we found one sooty mold scavenger beetle. Just see, this is a beetle which is a Tenebrionidae beetle which feeds on the sooty mold. The sooty mold during the wet period, especially during the monsoon period, it feeds and then it takes away all the sooty mold. And finally, what we will see here is the palm will be cleansed after the rainfall. Complete rejuvenation happens. So this is how the nature gives you. Just see this insect, see how sharp these bristles are on the legs. So this is just like your toilet cleaning brush, and just see the gut of the insect full of black fungus. So it feeds on that and completely it cleanses the farm nature. So it's a wonderful observation made by our team at Kayankulam, and finally we could see that the conservation of this Encarsia guadeloupe and this Leucrini will make a lot of difference in the management of whitefly to the greater level. So what we advise is pesticide holiday, conservation, biological control of these two insects. So this is very, very important, and no insecticide application. So you can go for yellow sticking trap, even simple water spray. This also will reduce the population of that. And finally, you will also find this kind of ecological engineering concept, which I was mentioning, a kind of agroecology system. So in an intercropping system, that also reduces the population, and you should give a kind of a nutrient stimulus so that the health of the palms are improved. So this is how we manage this Rugo spiraling whitefly. And besides the Rugo spiraling whitefly, we had a couple of nesting whiteflies. This is Paralirodes bontari. Nesting whitefly, the name came because of this nest nature. You just see how this is just like your bird's nest here. The adult will be resting here, and Paralirodes bontari will have an X-shaped marking on the wing. It is very small. Here the nymphal stages are absolutely flat, and even you find in the pupa a lot of compound pores. There will be at least some 4 abdominal pores and 2 cephalic pores, but this is not a feature here. Normally puparium is used for taxonomic identification, but here the genitalia is used, and here this genitalia has got a kind of a dorsal horn and the posterior horn and a lip-like structure. So this is how we say this is Paralirodes bontari. And for a naked person, or for a person with the naked eye or extension personal, he can just observe for this particular criteria, which is very, very explicit. And these insects, especially nesting whitefly, are relatively small. Your Rugos is around 2 mm in size, where this is only 1 mm in size. This is again your nesting whitefly. Nesting whitefly is Paralirodes miniae here. So what I wanted to highlight here is Paralirodes miniae lacks this particular X marking. So that's the difference between bontari and miniae. And you have the genitalia with a cock head-like structure. So this is an area. Just see how this cephalic, this abdominal pores and the cephalic pores are present here. So all these things are common to the other one, but the genitalia structure is different, and the morphology, or especially the markings on the wings, are also very unique for bontari, which is absent here. So these two nesting whiteflies, which normally come along with this Rugo spiraling whitefly, was characterized by us, and we have even done the molecular characterization analysis for that. Of late, even in 2019, our NBR colleagues could come out with another important whitefly. This is palm invasive. These are all invasive pests, okay? And this palm invasive, or the palm whitefly, this is Alirotrachelus atratus. This was very specific to the palm. You will find a blackish kind of egg, and the nymphal stages will have at least some 8 puffs or tufts on the dorsum. Just see how these 8 puff-like structures are there. And normally it is closely associated with Paralirodes miniae. This is Paralirodes miniae. So this adult of this particular insect will be of this nature with the roof-like structure. So it leads to confusion, which means most of these whiteflies coexist. So once they are coexisting, you should not be confused. So we are having a tool or a molecular characteristic mechanism or molecular characterization method of Coy analysis, where we can very easily distinguish between all these species very successfully. So this is one of our papers which we have published very recently in Current Science, where all the 5 species of whitefly could be morphologically and we can identify through molecular technique, so that you just see how this Alirodiscus rugio comes and disperses. They come as one cluster. You find the nesting whitefly Paralirodes bontari and Paralirodes miniae coming into another cluster. You'll find Alirotrachelus Atretus and Alirothrix is coming in another cluster. So what I am just trying to say, molecular wise, they are different. And even the puparium, you just see how these structures are. Size of the adult, you can just see. And you can just see the markings here for Paralirhodus bontari and no markings on for mini. And you just see it's a roof-like wing setting, or even when the insects are at there. So we have characterized all these insects, all these 5 species of whitefly, which is available in the public domain. So you people can just see to that, and whenever you go to the field, try to understand what species is available. Just see, when you see this is Para-Alirhodus mini nesting whitefly, but it is resting on the pupae of palm whitefly, that is Alirhotractylus atratus. So this is the confusion. And this insect is your citrus whitefly, Alirocanthus uglumi, but here this is Para-Alirhodus bontari. So all this is both Para-Alirhodus bontari and your Rugospiraling whitefly together. So this is Para-Alirhodus bontari and Rugospiraling whitefly. And these kind of insects do coexist. The resulting is we get confused. So to avoid confusion, we have made all the characterization features available so that you can, even by seeing the adult, you can spell it out. Now, what is the present position of this particular whitefly in our South Indian condition? You just see it was at a very high level. Your Para-Alirhodus RSW, just it was low during July, and then it went up very high, and then it reached at the top. At the time, even your Buntas nesting whitefly was also there. It was, when this was high, this comes down. When this is low, this goes up. And finally, you just see now the population is stabilized from around 4. Now all these 2 populations come to around 1.5. Now the population is stabilizing. The resultant is no insecticide spray was applied. So from a 4, it has come down to 2 or 3 per leaflet colonies, active leaflet. And just see the parasitism. So initially, when the Rugospiraling white was very high, the parasitism was very low. Now, when the parasitism has gone up, the population gets stabilized. So what I am trying to highlight is the conservation biological control, or the biological control agent like Encarsia, has a very, very greater influence on the population regulation of this particular pest. So we have a new whitefly on Goa, very specifically in coconut system. This is Alirothrix flacosus, woolly whitefly. And you have this egg, a saucer-shaped egg, and you can find this full of this undersurface leaf. Normally, whiteflies are in the undersurface, especially the nymphal stage, and you can see this is the level of infestation, and this is how the insects are identified by the pupae structure. You can just see a mushroom kind of structure on the entrance of your operculum. You can find the margins of the puparium, and you will find submarginal setae, which is very, very critical, and some of the caudal setae. And genitalia is very, very unique. And we have of late characterized the semen gland, which is the egg-laying apparatus for all these whitefly. And the semen gland features, the size, shape, everything are unique for each of the species. We have characterized now 4, at least. Just see this Para-Alirhodus bontari, the semen gland, a kind of a mushroom structure, limited variation in the body region. Just see, in case of flacosus, the head is too lobed here, and there are wavy undulations. Just see your Rugospiraling whitefly, typically like a flat cobra kind of head structure, and body absolutely free and loose. And you'll find Alirhotractylus trachodus, this is a Pepper's whitefly, having a kind of a single head nature for this semen gland. So semen gland is one of the areas which we are now focusing for the characteristics of this whitefly. We have a couple of invasive species on your Aricanet, which is neotropical Ambrosia beetle, Euplatypus parallus. You can just find some kind of the sticky stuff, the substances coming out. You will just explore to find this. So these are all in the stages of sporadic in nature. So you always be careful in identifying this kind of. So in Aricanet, we have Euplatypus parallels. You have Eualacia fornicatus in case of cocoa. So these are the 2 of these Ambrosia beetles discovered by my colleague Dr. Shivaji, and you find this kind of insects now becoming so problematic, especially affecting the health of the plant at the same time, because these Ambrosia beetle houses a kind of a fungus which will definitely cause a kind of wilting symptoms. So nematode is another important invasive nematode, especially those who are coming from Andhra will be knowing, especially the Cadium nursery block, where you have a lot of these nematode issues. Your Merodogyne enterolobi, that's the one which affects the Goa very, very badly. So this is how the female galls and other things are formed. So most of the vegetables, most of the tubers are affected. And for nematode management, you have to be very, very smart enough, because this is a hidden problem. nobody will be in a position to identify it. The symptoms are not very clear and explicit. So the resultant is farmers are not in a position to identify. So you have to go for soil washing and identify this nematode based on some of these symptoms. Just see the galls on the tubers. You can see how these galls are produced on even a perennial guava system, and the species identification is very critical. So our group, nematology group under the leadership of Dr. Rajkumar and Dr. Anas, they have come out with entomopathogenic nematodes used in pest management. So we have at least a couple of entomopathogenic nematodes, Steinerimbus carpo against whitefly, against white grapes, and also Dr. Anas has come out with a kind of a capsule formulation where these cadavers are kept in a inactive mode. So once the moisture level goes up or during the rainfall, it gets activated. And so we are trying to use this in a kind of a use in a kind of prophylactic management. So I have a couple of slides. I will finish it very, very fast. So the new chrysomelid beetles, these are some of the pests which are yet to reach the mainland. So this is a kind of a leaf beetle which is now prevalent in Andamans, and it is nowhere in our country in the mainland. So whenever you bring the material from try to bring the material from Andamans, you have to see that this particular Wallacea jorova is absolutely, this is Wallacea, and Wallacea is nowhere present in the mainland, whereas we have one Calispacarum here, which is not at all problematic, which is taken care by the natural enemy. So whenever you bring material, you have to have this quarantine very strictly followed. Quarantine means 14 days. 14 days it should be checked, monitored, and for any of this presence of this material. So we have another potential invasive, which this pest is not reported in our country. And all the students kindly make a note of this particular Brontispa. Just see, India, it is not invaded, whereas in all Southeast Asian countries, it is prevalent. We do not know because of the Calispacarum or something, it is not prevalent, but the symptoms are like this. All the spear leaf area, you will find this many number of beetles in a single leaflet. So, my dear friends, wherever you have any of these issues or you are finding all these potential risks, please report us or to the concerned authority so that we will be in a position to even destroy this kind of material at the time of invasion. So, this is Brontispa longissima, which has not come in our country, in our mainland, or even for our island as well. And this is a scale insect Aspidiotus rigidus. This is very unique in Philippines, and it is the fate of Philippine coconut garden. And in India, we have Aspidiotus distractor. This is a coconut scale, which is not very problematic, only because we have some of these natural enemies. One of the very successful natural enemies are the lady beetles, which is Parasymnus horni, which feeds on that. And we have Aphytus species, which is a aphelinid parasitoid, which can parasitize. And finally, this Chilocorus nigritus and Sasagissimus. All these array of these natural enemies take care. So, my dear friends, understand the ecology very systematically, and then you can manage all these things very successfully. So, what are we supposed to do to manage this invasive pests? Mostly, you have to strengthen quarantine, which is not in our hand. So, Minister of Biosecurity is not available in our country. So, we have to see that it is happening. So, whenever you go from one state to state or other, kindly don't take any material which are contaminated with any diseases or pests or even nematodes. So you have to advise your agricultural officers, or even for that matter, all the persons. So biodiversity is a real issue now. Whenever you take a material, see that it is free from any of these invasive pests or diseases for that matter. So surveillance surveys, there should be a very great international level to have this. And finally, the awareness campaign also very, very critical, because whenever there's an occurrence happening, we have to immediately report to the concerned authorities and sensitize the farming community not to panic and do the things. So, my dear friends, what are you supposed to do in this era, in this challenging time of COVID period? So, you have to make these kind of challenges into a kind of opportunity for a global solidarity. So, the global, you have to, don't think all these are localized. Invasive pests are of international concern, not of a national thing. It is not a proper concern of an individual state, it's a concern of the entire nation. So most of these environmental changes are affecting biodiversity. You have to be very, very cautious of that. So monoculture, please avoid. Go for a kind of a polyculture or a crop pluralism method. That's very important. Environmentally responsible farming, or farming with nature. Ecological intensification should happen, not varietal intensification. Ecological intensification with more ecological benefits to the thing. So globally, you have to think about One Health, which I was mentioning. So the health of everything is important. Then only the human health is going to come. So this is very important. So everybody talks about now carbon neutrality, net zero emission. Our Prime Minister has told by 2070 we are going to have a net zero. So this is So carbon in the atmosphere is dangerous. Carbon in the soil is highly beneficial. So convert the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere into the soil and make a kind of carbon which plants can do for you. So biodiversity literacy you have to do, and you should have a kind of a plurilateral linkages for sustainable development goals. So this is my humble thing. Final word of advice to my students, every student community I used to say, you should have a kind of 7 R's in your life. So first is you should have a very good goal in your life. Record the information. Wherever you get the information, kindly record it. Revise it periodically. Take absolute rest also. And resist. Don't see some unwanted materials or whatever it is. Reproduce. You can reproduce it better only if you take rest and if you can revise properly. So revision is very critical. Recording is the primary thing is very important. Once you record it properly, revisions makes a difference. Once you revise properly, you can reproduce it. Once you reproduce it, it is a revelation which the God Almighty will give you, and you will definitely prosper. So success is only a journey. It is not a kind of a destination for you. So best method of learning is teaching others. So you have to teach others. So learning includes an understanding and problem solving. So you have to be in a position to solve a problem or a situation, complex situation, utilize it. So that is how the learning should take forward. So it's a skill which you will never master, but you have to inculcate everything with your experience. So learning to know, you have to learn to do, you have to learn to live in harmony. My dear students, it's very, very important. So you have to learn to live in harmony and to be whom you are. And you should be competent. At the same time, you should be a compassionate individual to take the country to a greater heights. So fix a goal and be focused, be positive, work hard, and have a self-belief in you, because that is very important. Always work for an environmentally responsible world and a One Health mission for a self-reliant India. So this is what I thought I should share with you, and just see, learn from the insects. See a drop of water, how 12 insects are balancing. If one insect comes to this side, the balancing is lost, the water gets tilted. So they cannot share. So how they share, how they balance, the thing is. So this is how Dr. Swaminathan has harvested coconut. So we have now made coconut a very dwarf individual as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, my dear friends, for this wonderful opportunity. I thank Dr. Neema for having given me this nice opportunity, along with the course coordinator, Dr. Jay Shekhar, and the Kalpa Graduate Readiness Program. Wish all my students a very successful career in this academy. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It was very informative.
Yeah, carry
on. So it was very informative, and actually the students are going to gain very much from your class, not only for their academic growth, but also for their personal growth. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now let's open the session for
yeah, now I think there are some 26 students there, so it's a very good sign. Some have gone up. Fine. Any students, be very free, be open, you can discuss. Because of the shortage of time, I went a bit fast. So for me, it is only a kind of eye-opening information. You have to read more. More you read, better will be the clarity, and finally you will accomplish more in your life. Yes, please. So there are two things in this. Normally students, they don't open their mouth because they have understood everything. Or they don't open their mouth because they have not understood anything. So I think these students have understood everything.
Obviously, I think so, sir. Students?
I think they felt bored or something like that. What, Neema, whether it was okay or?
No, sir, I don't think they would have been bored, because it was very interesting and very explanatory and elaborate. I don't think it is like boring. Students? Nobody has doubts? Usually there used to be some 45 students.
No problem, because
last time we made a mock test. So I don't know, because of that the number has considerably reduced.
Okay, so don't put them into examination mode, because examination will take away their mood at all. So that's one question in the chat. Let me see. The session was very informative, sir. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kiran. Information is always there. Is there any lacuna? That is exactly what I wanted to know. And second thing is, as a BSc agriculture student, because I taught what an agriculture is, and I taught what an invasive pests are, and what is meant by environmentally responsible farming. So you can strike problems, or you can have clarification at any level. We feel free, and my numbers and my email ID are open to you. You can just have, even if you feel not talking to me today, it's fine. But be bold. Questioning is the key to intelligence. If you don't question, I feel it is not correct. So you have to really ask some good clarifying question. I think they are all very silent. Okay, Dr. Nima.
So I think they might have understood everything. That is why they don't have any questions. So, sir, then shall we wind up the session for today?
Normally, they don't open mouth for any of the lectures, or it's only today they are not opening?
They used to ask questions.
Okay, so today they are crystal clear.
They're interactive. I don't know what happened. Maybe because of my mock test, or not quite sure. Or and usually there used to be some 45 students. Maybe
No problem.
I don't know what has happened to them. Anyway, sir, we'll be providing 3 to 4 pages write up.
Okay, that I'll give you. That I can give. Maybe give me some more time. I'll give you.
Yeah, sir. They will be providing at the end of the course.
Okay, that I will give you.
Right. So, shall we wind up the session?
Yeah.
Vipin
wanted to talk.
Sir, one time when I opened the CPCRA website, I could see some new report of a pest called Coconympha eriarca or something.
Yeah, very good. That's a good question. Yeah, so you wanted to know more about that?
What is it? Is it any potential threat is there in that, or how it is?
First of all, Coconympha eriarca, which was recently characterized by Dr. Sujitra and team from Kasaragod, is not a new pest to our system. Okay. It comes along with leaf-eating caterpillar or the black-headed caterpillar. So black-headed caterpillar, as the name indicates, has a kind of a black head region along with the prothorax. Whereas this particular insect, which is a jellychid insect, normally don't have that kind of black spots. You are getting my point, right, Bipin? Yeah. So yeah. So what I wanted to say is this pest was reported somewhere in 1950s itself in our country. So it is not an invasive pest, number one. It is an indigenous pest. It comes along with the black-headed caterpillar. In certain regions, sometimes it can have a kind of a different, what I can say, some higher population level. But in most of the cases, I feel it is a kind of an academic interest only. So don't too much worry about that. But leaf-eating caterpillar, that is Opicina arenosella, is definitely a pest of concern. Coconympha eriarca is a very minor pest, and that comes only occasionally. And we are monitoring that. Maybe we do not know because of this extreme weather condition whether it has reoccurred. But it is an old pest only, which our scientists had well characterized this time morphologically and described it very nicely, and it is very shortly published. Thank you, Bipin. You got my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So can I call one name so that let us see? Shubham Kumar. Is he there? Anything? Okay, we don't want to disturb them. We wind up, Dr. Nima, please.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in Tamil Nadu, they will use coconut tonic, sir. TNA coconut tonic for erified mites, sir. But usually I didn't see anything like in Kerala, sir. Root feeding.
Actually, you have to be very, very clear in that. Normally, coconut tonic in Tamil Nadu is not meant for eriophyte mite. Okay. Coconut tonic is a micronutrient mixture which is normally used for improving the nut yield or improving the palm health only. Okay, so that is the point. I think you have to have very much clarity. And normally for mite, we use azadirachtin formulation, which is very commonly used. So in coconut mite management in Tamil Nadu, what they normally use is they use a lot of insecticide, no doubt about that. Anything will take care. But this coconut tonic is only a micronutrient stuff which improves the nut bearing ability of the palm to a greater level. Okay, Krishna Murali.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Nima, we can wind up, I suppose. I think our friends are not opening their mouth too much. Anyway, a couple of them has asked something. Fine.
So today we'll wind up the session. I thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invite and taking this class. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and all the students.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you, organizers, once again for this nice opportunity. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So you can leave, sir. Students, I just have something to tell you. Okay. So today we have, I think it's you all are hearing this. Today there is just 23 participants. It's usually we used to have some 45. I don't know what is happening to the group. And so what we are planning to do is we are going to make a separate group. Now the KGRP 4 groups are there. So we'll be just screening the students who are interested in this, who want to gain knowledge from this. Actually, it's very embarrassing that we have started a course like this, and the other students, please spread this news to your friends who has not joined. I don't want to scare the students who are here, but just for information's sake, what we are going to plan is we'll just make a group with all the students who will be who will be present here. Mostly, we will be screening on the basis of the mock test as well as some tests we are going to do. So after that, we'll just make a group, and that group will be given the invite. So please take care of this. Thank you for everybody for being present. So now I'm going to end. Bye. Take care.